Hi, patrons.
Hey, patrons.
We're going to talk more science.
Can't fucking wait.
Yeah, specifically vaccines and placebos and fuck RFK Jr. in the head
Uh-huh.
with a knife. Uh,
Hell yeah.
I mean, don't
Like,
actually do violence, but
don't
like,
do violence, but
fuck
like,
that guy.
yeah. If he used knives for earplugs, we wouldn't be mad.
I'd say if he was like eaten by a shark, I would have a hard time feeling sad about that. Matter of fact, I would find that almost cathartic in a way of all the animals that he is like randomly murdered for some fucking reason. Um, I think if we
Yeah.
can find a place where it's like shark breeding season and suggest that he go surfing out there and that the
Dude,
waters have like healing properties,
there's a great white shark that just like ate somebody off of the coast of New York. So like have him surf in Long Island.
let's do it. He should be surfing in Long Island.
Yeah.
And also tell him that the mineral waters off of Long Island have healing properties, but he accesses them best if his body is draped with raw steak cutlets.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then he can go
The
surfing.
electrolytes. The electrolytes help with that. And we'll just like make some bullshit up.
Yeah. Um,
The fucking RFK. What a strange character.
I was saying before, I'm like, obviously I hate Trump and I hate Musk and I hate Vance and I hate all the fucking white supremacists and Hegseth that they've got going on in their administration. They're just terrible, horrible people that just do terrible things. But
Yeah.
almost nobody, I think, takes the cake for me as much as RFK Jr. God, he's turned out to be the just absolute fucking worst.
Yeah. And what an unfortunate like I don't know, just what an unfortunate person. Like just
Yeah.
so much. He's just such an like it's unfortunate that he's alive.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
unfortunate that he's alive and like members of his family were assassinated and like died that probably could have done much more good.
right? And it's like that one group that provides access to abortion by like funding people to fly to other states so they can get access to abortion. The like Samuel Alito's mom's abortion fund, and
Uh-huh.
the whole premise. This is from the Satanic Temple. The whole premise is they're like Samuel Alito's mom didn't have a choice, and look what happened. And that's how I feel about like RFK Jr. It's a good example
Uh-huh.
of why abortion should be allowed, and in
Yep.
some cases maybe even encouraged. Otherwise, we end up with people like him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always love that argument when people are like, what if, you had an abortion and then that person could have cured cancer? It's like, that's not how time works.
Yeah.
And that's not how any of that works. Like, you're that one person is not going to be this 1 in 7 billion that does that because that person will not live to do that, but somebody else will eventually do that. It's fine.
What if you
So,
had an abortion and that person would have turned out to be the next Hitler?
yeah, yeah,
See,
it goes both ways,
it
pal.
goes both ways. All right.
Oh, all right, let's do this.
All right. I'm going to count us down and make sure my audio is still doing the things it's supposed to do. Um, yeah, cool. So sometimes when I open a new file, it will like revert to a different like
Yeah, yeah.
audio setting. So, okay, ready?
Yep.
Three, two, one, go. Welcome to Why We Do What We Do. I am your host, Abraham.
And I'm your host, Shane.
And I should have said why we do what we do mini because this is a small episode. And by small, I mean
Tiny,
short. Yeah.
fun
We,
size, bite
we take a
size.
topic that does not necessarily require a huge deep dive, although in most of these, I'm sure that you can make the case that you could do a big, like thorough investigative expose on it. And that's really cool. But we try to choose something that we feel like we can manage in like 10 to 15 minutes and then let you go about your day.
Yes. Then so today we are going to talk about placebo controls, but specifically in the context of vaccines. And we're talking about vaccines because apparently we're having another debate about whether vaccines cause autism and all that nonsense. I'm so tired of saying the word vaccine and having to justify why vaccines are important to people.
Yeah, it is kind of silly. So, anyway, we are a psychology podcast. I think I said that already, but we talk about all of the things that humans and non human animals do. And if you enjoy what you hear today and you would like to support us and you haven't done so already, one way you can do that is by heading over to Patreon, where you get access to sort of bonus extra content. You can leave us a rating and a review, like, subscribe, and tell a friend. I'll talk more about that at the end of this discussion. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're glad that you are here. We hope that you enjoy enjoy what you listen into this today and walk away with something hopefully a little bit valuable, which is like an argument as to why we should not. It's like this is actually why we shouldn't do some things, maybe
Yes.
instead of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're ready to dive in.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Let's go ahead.
All right. Now, we have talked about placebos in the past. So you might go check out some of our earlier episodes where we've talked about placebos. And so we're not really going to dive into that necessarily here. But um, placebos are often used in science to create an experimental arrangement that is very rigorous and that can essentially distill the important variables in a really highly controlled setting so you can understand how things work. So the idea is that you might test some new substance. Often we're talking about medicine here, and you're going to test that against an inert version of that substance and see if
Sure.
there's any difference between how they sort of play out. So that's sort of the general placebo control arrangement.
Yeah, so sometimes we think about this and we're like, well, maybe we should do it when we're testing new vaccines, right? We should use placebos to in vaccine research to see if it has an effect. Well, at least that's the proposal from the dumbest jackass to ever work in the federal government, RFK Jr. So, again, we're talking about somebody who is vehemently non-science,
Yeah.
proposing that he slightly understands how the scientific method works, but then also completely debunks the fact that he has any knowledge about anything at all. So, we're going to talk about why we should not do placebos in vaccine research here.
Right. So we'll start by talking about how placebos work. And again, just a brief sort of overview here, recap, if you will. So let's create a hypothetical example. Let's say that you're testing or someone's testing new medication for headaches, and they want to try that medication against just a basic sugar pill, and the sugar pill has no known medicinal properties or any reason to believe it should have any way of impacting headaches. And so what you might do is you want to give some group of people the new medicine and some group of people the placebo. And if the new medication performs just as well as the placebo does in terms of people reporting their headaches going away, then it likely isn't very effective because we don't think that the sugar pill should have had any effect. So if the new medication only works that well, then we would assume like it probably doesn't really have an effect aside from people believing that there is an effect. However, if the new medication has greater effect on like reducing headaches than that placebo, then we might then interpret that to mean that that medication is pretty effective at helping reduce headaches because at least compared to something that should not reduce headaches, it seems to be doing a better job. And that's sort of the general idea of a placebo control.
Right. Now, typically, we will also separate people into two groups, one who will receive the real medicine versus someone who will receive the placebo. And that way, we can see if the group that got the medicine does better than the group that got the fake medicine. Like, we want to compare and contrast the results.
And, in the placebo episode that we did, we talked about the fact that a lot of times placebos will still have an effect, but a actual medication should have a much more powerful effect.
Right.
And so if you're interested in that, go check that out. And but so yeah, there's this the idea. So shouldn't we want to do this placebo control with all medicines and all medication?
Sure.
No,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
But hold on. Sorry. Let me rephrase that a little bit. Fuck no is
Yeah.
actually the real answer there.
It's ridiculous. So let's explain this. Let's unpack this a little bit, right? Imagine you, dear listener, have been diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, we have a treatment that is about 90 to 95% effective at treating this cancer. However, we have a new medication that might be even better or may be just as good but cheaper or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's new and we want to test it.
All right, so you have this disease that sucks, and this is a disease that will definitely kill you if untreated. But you can enroll in this study. So you might be in the group who gets the new medicine, or you might be in the group that gets the placebo that we know doesn't work because that's why we chose as the placebo. And we can see that if you're in the group that lives or the group that dies. Or both
Right.
groups die if the new medicine doesn't work in the way that we hoped. But like that's it. It's like we're going to say like we know that we can treat this cancer, but instead of giving you that, we're going to put you into one of two groups, one of which will do nothing that we know will do nothing, and one of which might work. And that's how we're going to test it. Are you going to sign up
Right.
for that study? I hope not.
I certainly hope not. I certainly wouldn't. Sometimes too, what'll happen is like the people will get put in a third group. So you've got like the group that gets the medicine, you've got the group that doesn't get the medicine, and you get the group that gets ads.
Nice. Good setup.
Thanks.
All right, I'll let you lead us back in.
All right, cool. Beep. Okay, so we're talking about placebos in medicine and how sometimes we shouldn't do it. And when we have an effective treatment, and we have a deadly disease, or maybe a highly incapacitating disease, or something that puts somebody at significant risk, we probably don't want to have a placebo in place. And vaccines are very similar in that regard. We cannot ethically give some people a placebo against a disease that may make somebody extremely sick, permanently disabled, or possibly even dead if we have an effective prevention against that disease. Like we can't just say like, oh, we know we could stop this, but we shouldn't. I mean, that's what happened with every syphilis study that happened early on, right? That's the Tuskegee Airmen. That was like we had a viable treatment available, and we chose not to give it to these folks for decades. And look what happened. It was terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the specific. If you look this up, and one of the sources we used cited the fact that like we've kind of done this in history, and it's like really bad. Don't do it
Yeah,
now.
it
And
has changed the way we do ethics.
yeah, it actually really has. Like it has set new standards for how we approach these because that was such a gross misstep that they took. So instead, what we'll do when we have situations like this where we have effective prevention or we have effective treatments, whatever the situation is, in this case, we're talking about like prevention. We're talking about vaccines. We test those vaccines against existing vaccines to see if they perform as well or better than those. Like the flu
Right,
shot that comes out every year, and this year we're probably not going to get an effective one because RFK has blocked their ability to share research with one another. And the manufacturers are now going to lose money on this because they might not even be able to get one to market. And if they do, they won't have any ability to speak to how well it works because of RFK Jr., who is trying to kill as many people as possible, specifically children, but as many as he can get his hands on.
right.
But anyway, the hold on, where was I going with this? Oh, uh, beep. One of the anyway, the way that one of the that they beep anyway, one of the ways that they test this, when you have a situation where you have something that you know is an effective treatment or prevention, is you then compare that with people who then get the other actual effective treatment or prevention. As I was mentioning, like flu shots, like oftentimes their efficacy is like, let's just say 70% or something like that. Well, if they test against a new strain that they, or a new vaccine they believe is even more effective, what if that gets up to like 95% or something? So like they
Sure.
will have obviously gone through several steps up to the point where they're confident in the safety of this, and now they're essentially measuring it for efficacy and like how effective it is. But like you don't want to be measuring that against like nothing, where you know that they have an actual real risk of like contacting a disease and again becoming extremely sick or permanently disabled or dead.
Right. So it's really not very complicated. We don't want to expose people to unnecessary risk or harm, especially in research. Like that's the last thing. Like we want to really take steps to make sure that people are not exposed to risks or harms for undue reasons. You wouldn't want yourself or a loved one to be a guinea pig in a situation in which there is a 50% chance you will get completely ineffective medication against an illness that may kill you. There are ways of doing good science without placebo controls, and we have been doing them for decades. Decades. We have examples of how we can do this without having to implement placebo controls.
And I do want to say, like, there are conditions under which in basic science and medicine, placebos make a lot of sense. And in like very low stakes situations with things such as headaches, for example, the outcome of that medication failing is not you being extremely sick, disabled, or dead. So, like, it's low stakes enough that that might be an appropriate place to do a placebo control. So, it's not like there's no place for placebos at all in medical research. But when we're talking about high stakes situations that are life and death, like, those are places where if we have an effective treatment, start with that.
Right.
And then like compare our new treatment against those. We're not going to then put people in the risk of harm that we know we could have otherwise prevented or at least somewhat mitigated. And
Right.
another aspect of this too is that like part of why we're talking about this is that there is like a new mandate that vaccines go through placebo control trials. And this is so wrong-headed. It is going to slow down the process of vetting vaccines. It's going to cost more money to vet vaccines, and it is going to be unethical and cause people to suffer unnecessarily. It will cause undue harm. It will introduce more bureaucracy, take longer, cost more money, and hurt more people. So in RFK Jr.'s world, that's a win-win-win-win.
Yep, exactly. Now, conditions under which placebos may be appropriate, specifically when it comes to vaccines, would be one, developing a locally affordable vaccine, two, evaluating the local safety and efficacy of an existing vaccine, three, testing a new vaccine when an existing vaccine is considered inappropriate for local use, based on epidemiological or demographic factors, or four, determining the local burden of the disease. Like those are conditions in which a placebo might be effective.
Or it might be an appropriate
It might be
choice to
appropriate use,
use,
is what I
yeah,
mean.
in like a vaccine in a placebo control. Sorry, because you mentioned placebos in an experimental study evaluating a vaccine, having a placebo might be appropriate under those conditions. And this is one of those like the exception proves the rule type things, where it's like if we had to dig and search and scrounge around to like come up with conditions under which that could be appropriate, that highlights the fact that it is generally speaking very inappropriate. Like we do not use placebo controls for vaccines when we have effective vaccines already. Now, and I do think there are conditions, and that's actually in the four that they listed, there are conditions in which there is no existing vaccine. So testing a vaccine against a placebo makes perfect sense because like we don't have an effective vaccine to compare it against. So like let's take the recent bird flu that has been passing around and is probably one of the top contenders to be the next pandemic. We don't really have something that we're that sure about as far as vaccines, at least at the time of us recording this. And so a placebo control might actually be a reasonable strategy for something like that particular
Yeah.
disease, because like what else would we use? So it's not like it doesn't exist, but again, we consider all the factors here and the information that we have. And generally speaking, if we have existing effective treatment and prevention, we don't use placebos because that's wildly unethical. And again, introduces more bureaucracy, slows down the process, and causes undue suffering. So
Right.
that's why we
Exactly.
don't do and don't advocate for placebo controls with vaccines, particularly established ones.
Yep. Exactly. 100%.
All right. Well, that is what a mini sounds like. We go through and we digest it and spit out this sort of thing. If you would like to support us and you would like to get these without those nasty ads, and if you would like us to read your name at the end of our full length discussions, you can head over to Patreon. That really helps us out, helps you out because then you get all kinds of cool stuff and you feel really cool because you're part of a cool kids club. And we appreciate that. That's at patreon.com/WWDWWD podcast. Otherwise, if you'd like to message us and tell us something fun about placebos or science, or just tell us how great of a job we did, you can email us directly at info@WWDWWD podcast. You can also you can leave us a rating and review, like, subscribe, reach us on social media, all that stuff. Maybe I said some of those. You can also pick up some merch from our merch store. And thank you so much to my team of people without whom I could not make this show. And thank you all for listening. Thank you for recording with me today, Shane.
Anytime.
All right. I said a bunch of thank yous. Is there anything that I forgot that you would like to add before we kick this mini off to the published world?
Go out and vote. This is what happens when you don't.
Very good point. Yeah. Go out and vote against the anti vaxxers. All
Yes.
right. Thank you. This is Abraham.
This is Shane.
Why We Do What We Do mini is out.
Bye. All right.
Sweet.
Very good. All right. I got to run because I got to go to Orlando and get some vegan fried chicken.
Fucking sick ass shit.
Fucking sick ass shit is hell yeah, right.
Sweet. Cool, man. We'll have a really good rest of your day. And thank you for everything today.
Thank you,
And
my friend.
I will let you know about us coming down to Florida.
Yeah, just keep me posted, man. We'll be here. So we're
Sweet.
not going anywhere.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.